2023, am I right? What a year. Not only for the world we live in, but also for Doctor Who. In fact, only for Doctor Who. Who the fuck cares about anything else? Let's be real here. The 60th anniversary. Has it already been that long? Already? It's been and gone, but it's still here in my heart. And today, I'm going to be looking back on all of it. Yes, that's right, all of it. So far, I've made videos about the Giggle, the Star Beast, about the other ones, but now I'm gonna tackle it all, baby. Every single piece of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary media, I'm reviewing it all. I will leave no stone untouched. From Big Finish to the comics to the specials in between, this is the ultimate review of Doctor Who's 60th anniversary. So don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, you know how it is. Now, let's turn back the clocks to the ending of Power of the Doctor. Actually, let's turn it back even further. What's up, everybody? Play the damn intro. Pause. Actually, I forgot we can't do that anymore. 2021. The 24th of September, 2021 to be exact. Russell T Davies announced his return to Doctor Who. That long ago, huh? The BBC are partnering up with Bad Wolf Studios to produce the new series. And that's it. That's all we knew. I remember being on the toilet when I got the notification. I lost my shit. Literally. No, but seriously, it was hype. And the hype only increased. David Tennant and Catherine Tate were announced to be returning for the 60th anniversary. Cool, I thought. And then Ncuti Gatwa was announced as the next Doctor Who. And I went crazy. Now, if you want to talk about the stuff that makes me hype, that stuff makes me hype. We're getting a new Doctor, old showrunner. Looks to be pretty cool. And then Power of the Doctor came out. So at this time, of course, Chris Chibnall was still showrunner of Doctor Who. Flux had released just a little after the announcement that Rusty Davies was returning. You guys know I love Flux, and even the Daleks too. But even I was shocked at how good Power of the Doctor was. Flux had been pretty great up until the end, kind of dropped the ball. I still love Flux. Flux, I still love you. Flux, my beloved. Leave a comment below right now if you're a hashtag Fluxer. But I gotta be real. Either the Daleks had been great. Legend of the Sea Devils was... And then Power of the Doctor. This episode was a moment. Seriously, just wonderful from beginning to end, with moments that made my jaw drop like no other. Probably top 2 live viewing experiences of Doctor Who in my life. Number 1 is likely to be Day of the Doctor, and I don't know if that's going to change anytime soon. That one was just truly magical, but damn, was this episode just perfect. And so there I was, watching the most beautiful regeneration scene I'd ever seen in my life. I was wondering, like Doctor Who was, what's going to happen next? And so the score builds, the crescendo of the marvelous music by Segun Akinola. And it's the 14th Doctor! No way! Who could have seen this coming? Well, me, because they revealed it a few months ago. But still, it was hype. This was... what? A moment. And the start of RTD2. By the way, just before we go on, I feel like I need to put this out here. I love Russell T Davies. There are no caveats to that, no conditions, no buts. That's the end of the sentence. I love him. My GOAT. And I love Stephen Moffat too. And I love Chris Chibnall. I love them all. They call me the DW fan 91. Not just because I am the 91st Doctor Who fan of all time, but because I am a fan of Doctor Who. I love it. And I love the people in charge too. And yes, people ask me, they ask me even now, do I still love Russell T Davies? Yes, I do, the little scallywag. He's a cheeky chappy, I'll tell you that. But he'd have to shoot someone in 5th Avenue for me to say, hey, maybe this guy's gotta chill. With all that said, I'm gonna be making jokes. I'm gonna be making criticisms. mostly light-hearted criticisms. I gotta say this at the start because a lot of people in the fandom right now are some haters. Hating ass. And I don't want to be thrown into that bucket. I am a lover, not a fighter. I am a Doctor Who lover, okay? And so with all that said, this ain't gonna be sunshine and rainbows. I'm gonna be praising the stuff that needs to be praised, and I'm gonna be calling out the stuff that needs to be dumped on. So let's talk about this regeneration scene, huh? David Tennant's back! I do love myself some good old Davy Tennant, and today he finds himself playing Doctor number 14. Curious. Russell T Davies made it very clear that this was indeed not a trick, not a rug pull, entirely serious, and will have an explanation. As always, he was completely full of shit. Russell T Davies too started off with a bang. And a controversy to boot. Now you guys might have noticed this, but in that regeneration, the Doctor's clothes changed. Immediately mine and a lot of other people's minds began racing. Why? Why did this happen? Why is the 10th Doctor back? Are we gonna get an answer to this in the 60th? And Russell T Davies, he swooped in and put that all to rest. Like a guardian angel with his immediate comments where he said that he didn't put David Tennant in Jodie Whittaker's clothes because he thought having a straight man wearing Jodie Whittaker's gender-neutral androgynous Doctor Who outfit, that's pretty much the same one that David Tennant wore as the Doctor anyway, would be an attack! Thanks for clearing that one up, Russell. I'm glad everyone got the memo. Now this put everyone in a tiz because what? A, it's David Tennant, B, it's David Tennant, and C, Sacha Dhawan already wore the Doctor's clothes in that same episode already, and absolutely no one gave a shit. But keep that in mind, okay? That no one caring aspect is gonna come up a lot, trust me. Just remember that this, in retrospect, nothing controversy over nothing could have been completely avoided if Russell T Davies decided to just say nothing. But let's move on from that. Enough of the negativity. Let's talk about the 60th anniversary's first W. Doctor Who magazine began releasing Liberation of the Daleks, the 14th Doctor's first story, and to be honest, it's pretty good. I love Doctor Who magazine, always have, and unlike some fans, I also adore the comics. I honestly could make a whole video onto itself just about the comics because I love them. Leave a like for that video. And Liberation of the Daleks is no exception. It's a wild, meandering story incorporating the World Cup, which was cool, and also many callbacks to the previous Dalek mythos. It was a very rewarding read with a bunch of really cool Easter eggs. And although it didn't tie into anything in the grander scheme of things, which is perfectly fine by the way, it's a DWM comic, it still was a definitive dub for the 14th Doctor and the 60th anniversary as a whole. A very premium feeling comic. Not every DWM storyline does it as, for lack of a better word, awesome as that. I mean, it's very rare that any DWM story is bad, but what I mean is that this one was especially good, and that's always appreciated. Also releasing were the teasers and trailers for the 60th anniversary specials. Neil Patrick Harris caught the eyes of many as the Celestial Toymaker. I mean, this mysterious unknown villain. Who is he? Donna was also back, and then the titles got released. The Star Beast, Wild Blue Yonder, and The Giggle. Instantly, the fandom was set alight. The Star Beast. Now that's a deep cut. Around the fandom, Beep the Meep had been a meme for as long as I could remember, with the original comic that shared the same name being a fan favorite for 4 decades. An adaptation of that story for the 60th anniversary. Many, including me, were intrigued, although a bit skeptical. At this time, we were still expecting something from the 60th of the same scale as the 50th. The Star Beast is a fine story, don't get me wrong, but is it really on that grand of a scale to serve as an anniversary story? Well, we'd have to wait and find out, but the other two were also interesting. Wild Blue Yonder was kept completely secret. Nothing on it was released at all. And The Giggle, well, that just looked crazy. Overall, I was positive going into the 60th. I had my concerns, but they were a long way away. Entering into 2023, it would be 11 months before our screens would be blessed by the specials. But that didn't mean the anniversary hadn't begun. It just meant we had to wait 11 months to get to the good stuff. A long 11 months. Okay, so from now on, I'm going to split the video into 3 segments. I want to get through this at a reasonable pace and give everything the time it deserves without hopping from one subject to the other. So for the sake of brevity, I've decided against doing this in chronological order, although I'll at least try to keep it somewhat. Instead of going through each month individually and then reviewing all of the releases in said month, I'm instead going to do it like this. Part 1, the Big Finish stuff. All of the non-visual content released throughout the year, I'll talk about it here. Part 2, all of the EU material released visually, aka Destination Skaro and the Red Nose Day specials. And part 3, as you all expected, the anniversary specials, the full complete episode, all 4 of them. I'll do those in regular order so you don't have to worry. But let's start with the Big Finish stuff, and I'll see you on the other side.
Hi, I'm Doom. Blame my mother.
What the fuck?
I'm the universe's greatest assassin, and in one day I'm going to die. Unless I can find the Doctor. Someone sent death, literal death, after me. I can only outrun it for 24 hours. So, the clock's ticking. My vortex manipulator sends me a new target every hour. The Lesser Order of Oberon sends me a lot to choose from, and I'm picking the missions that'll, maybe, bring me to the Doctor. 24 hours. All of time and space. Will I find the Doctor? Ancient enemies? Old friends? Or maybe I'll go out in flames. A lot of flames! Well, it'll be better than what's coming for me. If you see the Doctor, tell them I'm on my way.
So we're not off to the best start. The first piece of anniversary content came in the form of Doomsday, the second multimedia Doctor Who project, and while I admire the spirit, somehow this one failed even more than the last. That's crazy. Let me explain. A couple years ago, Big Finish and these comic book guys and these book guys, they all came together and made a multimedia project called Time Lord Victorious. It looks pretty cool, and it was. In theory. You see, the problem with Time Lord Victorious became evident pretty early on, which was that this event was really expensive.
I'll take the money.
Let that grab!
The storyline was vast and confusing and told over so many different mediums, including escape rooms, which is really cool for the few people who were able to access them. Honestly, this could be a whole video unto itself, but the main point I'm trying to make was that the storyline was released a mixed reception and the price was totaling at several hundred. And so what did they decide to do? Do it again, but make it worse. It works every time. Doomsday follows Doom, the world's most dangerous bounty hunter or assassin, on her last day. Doomsday, get it? This was unveiled in a shockingly low budget short that would have made the BBV blush, and immediately I thought to myself, wow, what a bad idea. It's her last day in a time travel show. How does time go forward for her? Why are we following her? Why would the Doctor help the most dangerous assassin in the universe? Why would we like the most dangerous assassin in the universe? Especially when they're a bumbling fool. How would a bumbling fool become the most dangerous assassin in the universe? Now, you see, these questions I'm asking implies that there's a sort of intrigue towards this concept, but in reality, these are questions that a script editor should be asking the people who make this before they even hand in a finished draft. The whole project is founded on this faulty premise, and I'm sorry to tell you everyone, but it doesn't get much better. Yes, everyone, I did it. I did the unthinkable. For this video, I got all of Doomsday. Well, actually, I followed it along as it came out because I always support these things, but for the sake of dramatism, I will act like it's a massive deal. And it's all for this video, guys, so you better, I don't know. And overall, I'd rate it meh. Absolutely none of it stood out to me whatsoever. I never felt attached to any of the primary characters or were excited by the various twists and turns, such as incarnations of the Doctor showing up or various characters like Missy, for example. Some of the art in the comics I will say was very good, but overall my advice would be to save your money for something else. It's a big investment and in my opinion not quite worth it. Maybe I'd be a bit more charitable to this if it didn't cost just so much money. The ceiling for entry is so damn high, which makes me less forgiving. Hopefully in the future, when another multimedia project is in the works, they'll have learned the lessons from this one to make something truly special, because I think that there is potential in this format, even with the high cost of entry. My advice would be to release an actual relatively regular budget short alongside it, maybe something like Night of the Doctor, except maybe shorter, maybe like 2 minutes. Maybe not Night of the Doctor, maybe more so that Leela short from the season 15 box set. Something like that, or maybe 3 videos like that to hype it up and bind the stories together with an easy to watch visual element. It would go a long way. Also, you definitely need a better idea than Doomsday. Are we rating things now? I forget if I rated Liberation of the Daleks. I'll hold off on rating things for now, but don't worry, when we get to the specials, I'm gonna be giving out ratings galore. The Target Selected comic was by far my favorite of the event, with Hour 4 being my overall highlight. I just love comics, guys. I love drawing, I love the artwork, I love looking at the artwork and drawing. I love comics. Now let's move on to Big Finish's other big event of the year, Once and Future. For the 50th anniversary, Big Finish released Light at the End, a multi-Doctor epic featuring most of the classic Doctors in their Big Finish greatness against the Geoffrey Beevers Master at his most maniacal. Well, maybe not at his most maniacal, but this certainly is a solid master plan. I won't spoil it for any of you who choose to listen to it one day, as it genuinely is quite brilliant in my opinion, and 90% of that story is the mystery, and it's certainly one of my favorite Big Finish stories, something which I will definitely admit nostalgia plays a big role in. This was a great time to be a Big Finish fan. I think it's a perfect story, a perfect special, and a perfect celebration of the first 50 years of Doctor Who. Once and Future is not as good. Nicholas Briggs stated that he didn't like the one special model and instead wanted to do an anthology type series, a series of specials, all of which have a special type of matchup or concept that makes them feel like a real premium episode of Big Finish. All sounds great in concept. In fact, it kind of mirrors how the television series is having 3 specials, or technically 4 with the Christmas special, but we didn't really know that yet, instead of just having one big one. But the difference is, with every Big Finish episode, you have to pay for them individually, and that can rack up fast. Having one special is not just more grand in the context of Big Finish, making a special episode that actually feels like a special episode, but also it is way more beneficial to the customer, who only has to pay for one story instead of 7. So the overarching plot for Once and Future, pretty much, very basically, is that the Doctor has degenerated and he's got to stop it. That's the very basic gist. Of course, it's got a bunch of Doctors and a bunch of scenarios with a bunch of matchups, typical of Big Finish at this point, but I have to admit I was pretty let down by this. To be fair, I did not listen to all of them. In fact, I only picked up 2, but from these 2, I can safely say I just was not feeling it. I will definitely get around to listening to them all, don't worry guys, but I just didn't feel like forking up the rest to enjoy the celebration. They just felt like completely regular Big Finish, which would be fine if this wasn't meant to be an anniversary event, you know, a special celebration. I've heard great things actually about some of the stories that I didn't listen to, and I'm sure I'll listen to them someday when they're discounted, but man, I'm broke over here. I can't be justifying these financial decisions. Anyway, overall, I'll give Once and Future a wet fart out of 10. Outside of audio material, surely a lot of other content dropped for the 60th anniversary. Surely. The first major one being the Season 9 collection box set. They've been releasing these for a few years now, remastering the old seasons in HD with loads of special features and some episodes including new, revamped special effects. Additionally, they always release a short alongside the announcement of each release, like with the Leela and the Time Lord short that I mentioned earlier. They're actually stopping these, sadly. A real shame, but at least they ended on a high note in my opinion. Season 9, if you're unaware, is the 3rd season of the 3rd Doctor, with him pairing up with Jo Grant and remaining exiled on Earth, continuing his battles against the Master and various other villainous foes, Daleks, Sea Devils, Atlantis. It's a brilliant season, and while probably the worst of the 3rd Doctor's tenure, that only makes it the worst, in inverted commas, part of the best era of Doctor Who. Solid 9 out of 10 release, great artwork, great stories, and the only con being the scalpers who steal every copy you can find of these things. Fuck you. I can imagine trying to get your hands on these as international fans. That must be a chore. Honestly though, it's been this way since they first started, but the collection box sets as a classic Who fan are the main thing that I look forward to within in the year. They're great, they're everything I want, and they're always consistent in quality too. Skipping ahead a little bit to stay on that same wavelength, a couple months after the release of the Season 9 box set came the announcement of the Season 20 box set. And this one was hype. Season 9 is cool, and probably honestly better than Season 20. But this release had all the flair and content that an anniversary season should be given. A top tier release. I pre-ordered this one right after the trailer released, and what a trailer it was. An on-screen reunion of Nyssa and Tegan, and a sequel to the Mara storyline to tie in with the enhancements of Snake Dance. Incredible stuff and great work. I received the box set a little while ago and have loved it. I'm calling it early, but I'm gonna say it. Best release of the year and the highlight of the anniversary for me. Massive W. Also released a little bit later was the trailer for the Celestial Toymaker animation, and while that did recently come out, it did not come out within 2023. For some reason, and so it doesn't count as anniversary content. Additionally, in the summer, a bunch of Doctor Who novelizations were released, The Waters of Mars being the most prominent amongst them. I love Doctor Who novelizations. I think the selection chosen were great choices, and eventually I will get round to picking up the Zygon Invasion novelization. I'm sure I will enjoy that story a lot more in that form. And then, nothing. For quite a while. I want this to serve as an accurate archive of how most people thought about the 60th anniversary, and for most people, it was dry as hell. There were long periods of just nothing. No trailers, no release dates, not even any EU material. I was scrounging around for content so much I was going crazy. In the months between July and November, absolutely nothing notable released whatsoever. In the months between January and July, absolutely nothing notable released whatsoever. For most of 2023, absolutely nothing notable released whatsoever. So a lot of people's feelings towards the 60th anniversary celebration as a whole, as a year, will be marred by that. But that's no one's fault, it's just the way it is. This stuff's expensive, man. And now we're finally here. November 1st, on the dot actually, is where everything kicked off with the announcement of the Whoniverse. I was hyped. Not so much by the name, that I can take or leave. Apparently people have been calling it this for years. Not me. That's some Tumblr shit, bruh. But what I was hyped for was the fact that all of Doctor Who, Sarah Jane Adventures, Torchwood and Class was being put on BBC iPlayer. Finally. For so many fans, the show had been made so inaccessible. But now it was finally in an easy to reach place. This wasn't all good though. Infamously, there was the Unearthly Child debacle. That got me very cross. And also there was the matter of Disney. Now, Bad Wolf Productions had originally said that they were partnering up with Sony. Sounded fine to me. I've detailed this in previous videos, but Sony has historically shown interest in Doctor Who throughout the 2010s, and I thought, well, as long as they don't have direct influence and are just helping finances, it's fine. And then Bad Wolf announced their team up with Disney. At first, I was like, cool, Doctor Who on Disney Plus outside the UK, a lot more people will be able to watch it. W. And I held on to this cope that Disney would not be holding creative control over Doctor Who for months, because honestly, the thought was so disgusting to me that I didn't even want to entertain it. Disney, Doctor Who, blech. Antithetical. I've laid out all the reasons before and I don't feel like going into them again. If you can't just tell on the face of it that this is bad, I mean, you should be able to. Russell T Davies announced the decision to start over at season 1, which I suppose makes sense if you're looking purely from a short-term, how can we make the most money point of view, but is a strategy that quickly starts to show its cracks when held to scrutiny. The main issue is, of course, that this new TV show has the exact same name as the 2005 TV show. It is also called New Who by both fans and by Doctor Who themselves. It resembles the 2005 Doctor Who identically in both terms of style and substance, and continues on directly from the end of the 2005 show with no gap in time in between at all. Additionally, there are also 3, maybe 4 episodes that don't count as either show, which means that it's technically not Doctor Who. No one knows which episode is episode 1. Why are you trying to get new viewers in with an old Doctor? There's a bunch of questions raised and none answered satisfyingly. But then Disney began getting more and more involved over time, with the Doctor Who Instagram being renamed Disney Doctor Who, Disney now being shown prominently in the credits, and then also being described as having considerable sway over episodes' production, making them worse and more Americanized.
Here in North America, we love Doctor Who, but it is quintessentially British. What would you say is the international appeal of the Doctor?
Sherlock Holmes is quintessentially British, it hasn't done him any harm. So it's James Bond, so it's Tarzan. I don't think that's a problem at all. And indeed, any attempt to Americanise Doctor Who would be abominated chiefly by the Americans, let's be honest.
I think I should mention, by the way, why Americanized is a negative in the context of Doctor Who. Because I get it. A lot of people from America, they watch Doctor Who, they love Doctor Who. I got a comment on my last video calling me selfish because I think the UK has an ownership of Doctor Who and deserves to see it at a reasonable time. And to an extent, I kind of understand where the comment's coming from. It is true. There are a lot of American fans. Millions even, I'm sure. But there are also lots of Americans in general. The American market is different to the British market because there are just so many more American people. It's almost unimaginable to people in the UK just how large America is. Our whole country is smaller than one state. So yes, while there are a lot of Americans who like Doctor Who, there are also a lot, and I mean a lot, who don't, because it isn't American. It isn't a part of the American culture. It isn't a typical television show that connects with American audiences. It's not an American show, and a lot of Americans, understandably, don't want to watch a show that's so un-American in its ideals, presentation, etc. And where's my proof? The latest Disney Plus trailer, the one for the new Doctor Who, where the dislikes actually eclipse the likes. And keep in mind, this is for a trailer that I think is pretty good, but Americans, on the whole, reject it, either because they don't like the vibe of it, or because they don't like that the Doctor's black, or because they're stupid. No offense to Americans, but they don't connect with it, so appealing to them just ain't gonna work. I mean, we tried it before with the TV movie. That was great, and still Americans turned it down. By the way, for the record, as much as I kid, I do love America. I've been many times, I've always enjoyed myself, I love to go back again, and the experiences that I've had while I've been in the country have been, for lack of a better word, magical. It's a beautiful country, and the people in it are lovely too. But these are all arguments I've made before in other videos, whether they're that one or that one. I'd highly recommend checking them all out after you're done with this one, because now, let's move on to some of the stuff that released to coincide with the announcement of the Whoniverse. Namely, Tales from the TARDIS. I mean, Tales of the TARDIS. For the sake of my sanity and because I prefer the name, I will be calling it Tales from the TARDIS from now on. Tales from the TARDIS was the first of presumably many spin-offs for the new Whoniverse, and the first real anniversary content released in 2023. It is a series of omnibus versions of original episodes of the classic series such as Earthshock, Battlefield, etc., with new added scenes at the start and end of each story. These added scenes feature returning characters and actors from the original series reuniting once again. On iPlayer they say that the length of each episode is 90 minutes, but in reality there is only about 3 to 5 minutes of new content for each one, and what a letdown. I was very excited for this. You can actually check back on my original video where I reacted to these and talked about them when they first came out. It's safe to say that since even then, my opinion on this series has gone down, very low. I think this series is awful. Okay, let's talk about the concept real quick. Tales from the TARDIS takes place in the Remembered TARDIS, a new concept made up for the series that's making a reappearance in season 1. So sadly, it's actually important, in which a psychic manifestation of the history of the TARDIS has been created for past Doctors and companions to go to. This results in classic pairings such as Stephen and Vicky, Jamie and Zoe, and the Doctor and Ace reuniting once again. And also Joe and Clyde. It's cool to see Clyde again, I suppose. Got no clue why he's here. Favorite character in the Sarah Jane Adventures though. I'll take it. This guy is 30 now, by the way. Still looks exactly the same. Still looks like a kid. What a guy. But the problems immediately show from frame 1. Number 1, this TARDIS is really ugly. Awful set. I'ma just say it. It's cheap, it's cramped, it's claustrophobic, and it's not homely in the slightest. The only neat touch, in my opinion, is the upside down console, but there's no room for any of the characters to do anything except sit down. This shit is not bigger on the inside. Number 2, everyone acts out of character. My opinions after watching this is that it is a terrible fanfiction, undoing every emotional consequence of the original series, where all of the dialogue is stilted and terrible and overly melodramatic melodramatic. I hate it. I like seeing these old actors again, but the words they're saying just take me out of it. It made me feel like I'm watching someone play with action figures and saying the most cringy shit imaginable. For example, in the shot with Jamie and Zoe, arguably the best TARDIS team of all time, for whatever reason, they undo their incredible ending at the end of the War Games for no reason. Spoiler alert, at the end of the War Games, Jamie and Zoe have their minds wiped by the Time Lords, and it's heartbreaking and cruel and awful of the Time Lords, really showcasing why the Doctor hates them. And then here, almost 60 years later, it's undone in a very lame way, might I add. Almost as if to imply that it was a stupid and poor story decision to have done it in the first place, very clearly misunderstanding the point of the War Games and what makes the original series so great in general. Similarly, in the shot where the 5th Doctor and Tegan reunite, all they do is sit around and cry about Adric. Give me a fucking break. This isn't what the original show's about. Power of the Doctor did it perfectly. We do not need any more of that. Ace also acts terribly out of character too. It's awful what they've done to her. They legit turned her into the complete opposite of who she was originally. For straight up no reason. The 6th Doctor and Perry episode is them talking about stuff straight up no one cares about, and the only one which is handled with even the slightest inkling of class is the Peter Purvis Maureen O'Brien episode. Genuinely a touching moment at the end of that, and I also just love those actors so much. I mean, I love all of these actors so much, man. Colin Baker sat there and said the most ridiculous things I've ever heard in my entire life, but I did not care, especially when I watched it the first time, because he's Doctor Who, and when Doctor Who speaks, I listen. I love Colin Baker. Colin Baker, my GOAT. Season 22 is a misunderstood masterpiece. I'll stand by it till the day I die. But yeah, it looks bad, it feels bad, the music's bad, the writing's bad. It's bad. They're forcing in this awful New Who melodramatic angle that ruins everything the original show is about and clashes way too heavily. But that's not even the worst part. You see, the worst part can be summarized in one simple question. Why? Why does this exist? Who the hell is this for? I remember when this first came out, a lot of New Who only fans said, oh, this is one for the Classic Who fans. Trust me, Classic Who fans are getting fuck all out of this. No Classic Who fan enjoys this. Every single Classic Who fan that I've spoken to thinks that it's for the New Who fans. And the New Who fans don't enjoy it. Apparently, the alleged purpose is that the spin-off serves to try and get kids into Classic Who. It does not succeed at this. A, kids don't care about these old actors. B, you're getting people to watch Classic Who through a lie, which means they won't enjoy it because they're expecting something else. That's how expectations work. And C, if you want to watch Classic Who, just watch Classic Who. All of these episodes are objectively inferior versions to the original. There is no debate for this. And in the Battlefield and Earthshock episodes, they're literally spoiling stuff that happens in the episode. They cut out the cliffhangers, which are arguably the best parts. I beg, I implore, if you do ever feel like you might like Classic Who, do not watch this series. Watch Classic Who instead. At best, this series adds a few neat shorts to the Doctor Who canon. At worst, misunderstands the basic principles of the original show, makes it way more difficult to enjoy the original show, and actively takes away from what I like about the original show. F-. You fail! Good day, sir! I did not like this show. The explanation that all of the classic Doctors still exist after they regenerate somehow is awful, and in direct contrast to the Guardians of the Edge concept that was beautifully established in Power of the Doctor. That very well may be the best idea in modern Doctor Who ever. That the other Doctors watch the show with us from inside the Doctor, that they can never come back but will always be cheering her on. The Guardians of the Edge is the perfect way to handle the past Doctors, which makes it so gut-wrenching that they immediately undo it within the next episode. Tales from the TARDIS isn't heartwarming, it's demotivating. And I am incredibly demotivated that it's now actually important to the main show, due to the fact that we saw in the leaked trailer, the Doctor goes to the remembered TARDIS in the new season. What a fumble. And yes, now I will start rating stuff. I will give Tales from the TARDIS a solid 3 out of 10. Next up was Talking Doctor Who, a documentary read by David Tennant, and there we are, man, now we're back. More my speed. This is what I like. Focusing entirely on the real Doctor Who, Talking Doctor Who is a joy to behold, and the type of Doctor Who content I wish there was more of. David Tennant gave some anecdotes, talked about some iconic scenes, and featured old interviews from classic Doctors. Would definitely recommend giving this one a watch. I will give it a solid 9 out of 10. After that was the transmission of the Doctor Who musical Celebration, which gave us a few new tracks, a few great interviews, and some brilliant performances of old compositions. A great spectacle, and I'm very pleased to say, a precursor to the return of Doctor Who at the Proms, for the first time in well over a decade. Brilliant news, I've always loved those. Anyway, I'll give this one a solid 7 out of 10, simply because it's more or less a rerun of the same event that happened at the 50th, but outside of that, it's brilliant. There was also Doctor Who at Red Nose Day, where Lenny Henry regenerated into Doctor Who.
I don't mean to be rude, but can you sing?
Let me sing! Let me sing!
It's just a bit of fun, really. There was a Blue Peter competition. That was very nice. Ross T. Davies did some interviews. Yeah, you can really see I'm scraping the bottom of the barrel, huh? And then there was Destination Skaro, the Children in Need special that once again sparked controversy within the fandom. Because of anything actually in it, but instead because of Rusty Davies' comments in the new series, Doctor Who Unleashed, that released after it. Oh yeah, Doctor Who Unleashed. It's like Doctor Who Confidential again. W. But anyway, Rusty Davies made everyone a bit cross when he said some very silly things about Davros that made him sound like he didn't know what he was talking about. Now, of course, I, as the most mature person in the room, took issue instead with the fact that the timeline in the short was wrong, because that's what everyone was talking about. But after that, I gave my own thoughts on the situation, which could be summed up simply as: Russell T. Davies, stop talking about this stuff. It really is that easy. If you want to avoid the blowback, which you should, by the way, you should want to avoid the blowback, just hold back a little bit and don't talk about it. Now, I know, I get it. Sometimes you want to brag. Sometimes you just want to explain how you feel. I'm telling you straight up. If you just made Davros into a regular guy and didn't elaborate on it, everyone would have accepted it and they would have forgotten about it by now. More than anything, if Rusty Davies is somehow watching this video, and if you are, by the way, can I just say, I love you, buddy. You're doing great. We're all rooting for you. Keep it up. But more than anything, if you only listen to one thing in the whole video, please let it be this: stop rage baiting. There are people out there whose whole careers are based around posting about how angry they are that whatever controversy has happened in whatever show. When you make these charged statements, all you are doing is feeding them for the month. It sparks conflict within the fandom. It gives people you hate money. Just don't do it. Rage baiting never works. Look at this for the perfect example. Quietly during this whole time, Rusty Davies renamed the character of the Celestial Toymaker to simply the Toymaker. In fact, he did it so quietly that some people think the character was always called the Toymaker. And in the original story, most of the time people did just call him the Toymaker. So Rusty Davies was just like, I think that original name had racial connotations, so I'm gonna change it, and I'm barely gonna talk about it. He didn't kick up a big fuss, and guess what? Absolutely no one cared. No one even noticed. No videos with inexplicably hundreds of thousands of views moaning about it. Nothing. Now, it doesn't matter if you agree or not with Russell T. Davies' reasoning on changing the name of the Toymaker. What matters is how he did it. And here, he did it exactly how you're meant to, in a perfectly unassuming way. I don't think Russell T. Davies realized just how much his voice influences the conversations around the fandom. If he doesn't talk about something, it's very unlikely that other people are going to talk about it. If he talks about something, it's very likely that that's all anyone else is going to talk about for years. I mean, it makes sense sense, right? He is the head of the show. And so I don't want to be that guy who's like, oh, you've got to be careful with what you say, but to a certain extent, you've got to be careful with what you say. At least cool it with the explosive rhetoric, you know what I mean? Now let's compare that with what he did with Davros. I have spoken at length about why I think the Davros change is dumb, but before I talk about the why, let's talk about what he actually did. Destination Skaro is a short comedy skit detailing the first/second adventure of the 14th Doctor, in which he accidentally finds himself on a pre-Genesis of the Dalek Skaro, where he gives a Khaled scientist played by a comedian, gives him a plunger because Dalek plunger funny haha, and then leaves. That's the end of the whole short, and at the start and at the end of the sketch, Davros comes in and says some stuff. Overall, I found the short inoffensive, if a little disappointing. People actually got mad at me, by the way, for not liking it. I can't help it, guys, I just didn't enjoy it. And also, I specifically pointed out how fudged the timeline is for this episode to make sense. You see, Davros in this episode is not in his life support unit, which means that this episode takes place before his accident. The accident is importantly vague in canon, whether or not the accident was caused by a Thar bomb or Khaled misfire. But either way, the main important takeaway of the accident is that it was the inciting incident that made Davros want to make the Daleks. You see, he made his life support system, and then in his own image, he made the Daleks. That's the story, that's how it goes. Until this short came out, at least 99% of the fandom was in agreement that Genesis of the Daleks is a great story. And it's a simple story too. Davros is a mad scientist, and also a megalomaniac with an insane ego. He creates the Daleks in his image. The similarities his appearance has to the Dalek are very important, not only to the story, but also to his character as a whole. So, in Destination Skaro, when Davros pre-accident is already showing off the Mark III travel machines, it raised an eyebrow. Keep in mind that the Mark I travel machine is his, and then Mark III was unveiled in Genesis of the Daleks. What that means is that this short has to take place around 10 minutes before Genesis of the Daleks, which means that Davros goes from this to this in 10 minutes. What I'm trying to say is that this ruins the story. Putting Rusty Davies' comments aside, this change is stupid and makes the story considerably less interesting. Davros was not originally bad. If you say that he was born bad instead of being molded by his experiences, you take away a key part of his character and what makes it interesting to the audience. Davros has to make the Daleks after he looks like a Dalek. And notice how I didn't say after he got into a wheelchair, because yes, sadly we've now all been gaslit into thinking that Davros was in a wheelchair. Is he a wheelchair user? Well, I see the chair, but where are the wheels? Where are the wheels? I like how in 2008 people would refer to the wheelchair in quotation marks as a skirt, because genuinely people saw it more so as a skirt than a wheelchair, because it's obviously not a fucking wheelchair.
It was quite hard to show you a little bit at a time, because you've got the skirt, you've got a gloved hand, and you've got some dials on the top, and then the rest of it's a leather jacket and then the face.
In hindsight, this makes all of Davros' appearances really awful, and all those Dalek jokes.
Stairs. It's more like it. Hasn't got legs, it's stuck.
Rose, you ableist pig!
So, anyone for Dodgems?
Doctor, what are you doing? Speaking of which, let's compare Rusty Davies' comments towards Davros originally to his comments now.
Time and society and culture and taste has moved on, and there's a problem with the Davros of old in that he's a wheelchair user who is evil.
He's back. He's actually essentially still the same Davros. You know, you bring back the Cybermen, they're from a parallel world, so we can do our own thing with them. When you bring back the Master, he is regenerated, and so every Master is as different as every Doctor is different. It's quite important to remember, I think, this is literally Davros, literally the same man. So I wasn't out to reinvent it in that sense. And also, why reinvent one of the best villains ever? I don't know what more you add to Davros. I added the one thing I did add was the body. We're not reinventing a classic, we're refurbishing a classic, I think, and reintroducing it to a brand new generation. It's like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Now, as someone I saw say in reply to this, one silly person, they said, it's been 15 years. Is he not allowed to change his mind? And yes, he is allowed to change his mind. Whether I like it or not, he's changed his mind. That's not the point of the comparison, you dumbass. Sorry to have to explain this to everyone who already gets it, but the point of showing these two clips back to back is to show that Russell T Davies does get it, because he too thought the same thing at one point in time. And he was right, and now he's wrong, and that's why the clips are ironic. What's also ironic is the fact that most of the villains in wheelchairs in Doctor Who are from the Russell T Davies era of the show. Let's do a quick look. Let's see which season of the show had villains in wheelchairs. Season 1, no. Season 2, no. Season 3, no. Season 4, no. Season 5, no. Season 6, no. Season 7, no. Season 8, no. Season 9, no. Season 10, no. Season 11, no. Season 12, but I suppose if we're counting Davros, yes. Season 13, no. Season 14, no. Season 15, no. Season 16, no. Season 17, well, it's got Davros in it, so yes. Season 18, no. Season 19, no. Season 20, no. Season 21, well, yes, because it's got Davros in it. Season 22, yes, because it's got Davros in it. Season 23, no. Season 24, no. Season 25, yes, because it's got Davros in it. Season 26, no. And I'm beginning to realize that if you don't include Davros, there are officially no villains in classic Doctor Who that were in wheelchairs. So it turns out that Russell T Davies was completely wrong. Davros is a perfect villain. He's iconic, one of the best in the show's history, and something that cannot be replaced with just some random guy. As I point out in my last video, which silhouette is inherently more interesting? Now, one could break down all of Russell T Davies' comments down politically and all that, but I don't really want to. Not only because I pretty much agree with Russell T Davies on everything politically, but also because I don't want to bring in politics onto my channel. This is an apolitical space, guys. We just be chilling and shit. But anyway, this one was a massive L. This all went down, by the way, 1 week before the anniversary aired. 1 week! And I think, looking back on it, I can safely say that this was the worst publicity move I've ever seen in Doctor Who history. I have never seen them shoot themselves in the foot like this before. I hope they learn. I hope. Stop rage baiting. It doesn't work. I remember I was speaking with someone in real life. We were having a lunch. I hadn't spoken to them in a while, and so I asked them about Doctor Who. Now, this is someone who hasn't watched Doctor Who in a very long time, almost 10 years at that point. And a few months ago, when I'd seen them last, when I asked them this question, they were ecstatic. They were very excited and couldn't wait to watch the show. But now, less than 2 days at that point, away from the 60th anniversary coming out, they're completely switched off. They were so against it. They did not want to watch. And the reason they gave me was that they'd heard about Davros. And I couldn't rebut it. I couldn't say, well, oh no, you've got the whole situation wrong. Oh no, you don't understand. Oh no, watch it anyway. At least not in good faith. And that hurt me. That hurt me a lot. As Doctor Who's biggest defender, you know that shit hurts. In fact, I know this is the case for multiple people in my life. They were going to watch the new Doctor Who, and then the controversy happened, and they did not watch Doctor Who. So yeah, definitely a massive fumble. Especially when they knew that the first special would already be touching on hot button topics. Man, what the hell were they thinking? This Davros change will go down in the history books as the biggest unforced error in Doctor Who history. Okay, so where were we? Oh yeah. The 23rd of November is the anniversary date of Doctor Who, and while the Star Beast aired on the 25th, the good folks over at the BBC had something prepared just for us as a present. A remastered omnibus version of the second ever episode of Doctor Who, The Daleks! And not only that, fully colorized! This had been rumoured for a few years now, and the idea of colorizing 60s Who has been controversial in the fandom, to say the least. Some say that black and white is unappealing to kids. Some say that the black and white adds to the atmosphere and is the intended way to watch it. Me personally, I get the anti-black and white arguments, but personally, I prefer to watch the episodes as they are. Colorizations are great for episodes like The Mind of Evil, which were intended to be in color, but unless they are really done well, I was unsure if they could be pulled off for the 60s era. But then I started seeing fan works, fan colorizations that really impressed me. And then I saw this, a brief collage, compilation of a bunch of 60s stories in color, and they all look great! Looks amazing! I was hyped as hell! And so, I watched The Daleks in color.
Cut the shit the fuck off!
What is it?
Bro, what is he doing?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Okay, let's be nice, let's be generous. If they choose to do more things like that in the future, that's nice. I supported this one. I bought the physical release. Let me be frank here though, this is unwatchable. A lot of effort went into this, it's very clear to see. Don't be demotivated guys, we'll get them next time. But this shit is ass, it's so damn bad man, it's terrible. This shit is ass. Where do I even start? How about with the colorization? It's all off. It's all off. The TARDIS is the wrong color, people's clothes are the wrong color, the Dalek City is the wrong color. It's not bad all the time, but it is bad enough of the time to the point where I'm gonna say it's bad. Some people might say to me, they might say, well, the TARDIS colors are accurate to how it was on set, but it doesn't matter how it looked on set. It was meant to be pure white. They colored it that way because on black and white cameras, it looked how they wanted it to, because the episode is meant to be in black and white. Why is the Dalek City so colorful? It's meant to be an oppressive gray. Even in the new series, when they bring it back, they retained this. The visual style does not match with the tone of the story and leaves it feeling ridiculous. And the re-edit. It is awful. It's terrible. It is very, very, very bad. As I said, it's unwatchable. The cuts are way too fast. The audio is cutting all over the place. The editing is abrupt, disorientating, and downright annoying. They have to cut a 7-parter into 45 minutes. The story is just unable to be followed. Straight up, it is incoherent. It isn't coherent. Everyone acts like they're crazy. It's way too fast. And the music, man, oh my goodness. We got Murray Gold at home. Budget Murray Gold doing the worst score I have ever heard. I remember when I first watched this, there's the scene. The first scene with the Daleks. An iconic scene. Literally a masterpiece. Contender for one of the best scenes in fiction, period. And so we get to that part, and in this re-edit, they start blaring this awful action stock soundtrack over one of the most powerful moments in the show's history. Totally off tone, totally against the mood of the scene. It is antithetical to the show straight up. It's a modern Who soundtrack, and that doesn't work plastered over a classic Who episode. It's like playing Skrillex over Mozart. The arrogance that you must have to be like, oh, but I can do it better. No, you fucking can't, man. This was the episode that made Doctor Who as popular as it is today. This is what put Doctor Who on the map. This is one of the most integral stories to the history of Doctor Who, and you have the gall, the arrogance to be like, oh, well, it's not that good. Modern audiences won't accept it. Fuck modern audiences. Who cares? You've got to handle this stuff with tact, or you shouldn't touch it at all. I saw the behind the scenes that they released on the DVD for this one, and it's just mind-bending to me. It's one of the only things that has actually, in recent Doctor Who, made me physically angry while watching it, because they were all so confident that somehow they had transformed one of the best stories of all time. The story that actually made Doctor Who popular in the first place. If this story didn't exist, Doctor Who wouldn't exist. That's just the way it is. And they have the gall to be like, oh, well, it's really difficult to watch now. Fuck you. Are you kidding me? I don't understand it, man. It's crazy. It's just crazy. It's wild to me. Where does this come from? Where does this idea that they could do better come from? I think that the first ever Dalek story is a masterpiece that literally skyrocketed the success of the program and made it last 60 years single-handedly. It's tense. It's terrifying. It's rallying. It's exciting. It is the perfect story and totally lobotomized in this edit. It retains none of the original magic. It retains nothing enjoyable. It is patronizing. It is frankly disgusting. I would happily call this an abomination. It's actually crazy. I could make a whole video talking about this. I would probably get very cross in that video. I'm getting very cross right now. I imagine maybe to a brain-rotted Zoomer, this could appeal to them if they've never had an attention span to make it through a real episode of Doctor Who. I'm implying you have to be stupid to enjoy this. A lot of early 60s Doctor Who is almost like a televised play with the long takes, the long monologues. And so the way I see it, when people come in and start whining and moaning about the lack of special effects, I think of them as hecklers at a stage play, crying that there aren't enough explosions. Maybe it's just a little too too sophisticated for you. Again, with the whole, it'll get kids into Classic Who. This isn't Classic Who. If a kid watches this isn't what Classic Who is like. It's a lie. And also, that's so patronizing. Kids can like the actual Doctor Who. They don't need this hand-holding to turn it into some Teletubby Inky Binky has a nice play. And what I just don't understand is that we don't even need this. There's already a Doctor Who movie in colour telling this story, and it's far better than anything this could have hoped to be. I am actually holding back. I'm holding back so much because otherwise this rant would never end. Leave it in the comments below if you want me to do a full video about why I don't like this, but overall, 2 out of 10.
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for.
The crown jewel of the Doctor Who 60th anniversary. The trifecta of specials. And for the sake of fun, I'll throw in the Church on Ruby Road too. So the quadrilogy of specials. I've made reviews of all of these episodes before, but now, with the benefit of hindsight, I feel perfectly happy giving them another look. I rewatched all these episodes like a million times already, and spoiler alert, I think they're pretty good. But how good? And why? Well, I guess we're just gonna have to find out. Let's talk about the Star Beast. Doctor Who's back! And abruptly too. The Doctor lands in Camden and immediately stumbles upon Donna Noble. The story doesn't take long to get started after that, and from there it's one big roller coaster ride until the end. The Star Beast is a very fast story. If you don't count that strange recap made for Disney Plus, things are pretty much all go from the jump. And that has its pros and its cons. The main con being that you never really stay in one place long enough to get a sense of where you really are. This also means that every scene feels really fast and lacking any depth to it, only serving to provide the most important information to the viewer so that we can quickly move on to the next scene. It's a very efficient episode, which I respect massively, but it also leaves the audience feeling dizzy. This episode would be perfect if it was 90 minutes long. Every scene in the story is necessary. It's not a poorly written story, not even in the slightest, but it is also too short. Foreshadowing is given to the final act twist, which we'll talk about that, but it's so blink and you'll miss it that nobody even notices, which is a shame because the shed being a TARDIS and all of the plushies being monsters is cool. It's really cool. It's a neat idea, but we don't get to see any of the plushies or get a good look at the shed, so no one notices and it's all for naught. The Doctor and Donna's initial reunion is also marred by a bit of strange editing and ADR, but by the time the Doctor gets in the back of Sean's taxi, things are given at least a little time to breathe. I'm glad they cut that scene where the Doctor uses his sonic screwdriver. It would have been a little over the top. The taxi scene is nice, but again, a little too fast. Given just 20 more seconds, and it really could have left an impression. Hell, maybe even just 10. Those can make all the difference, you know. And then we head to Battersea Power Station, which is the beginning of the spinning plates, as it were. Every episode, and I mean every episode, is like this. It's a process, a juggling process, and I like to imagine it as a puzzle. I find the solving of the puzzle really enjoyable, but I also really enjoy looking at episodes like this, where the puzzle is pretty much solved, but just a little something here and there went wrong and things look a little jagged. It's really interesting to me. I love dissecting Doctor Who, if you couldn't guess. The episode has to focus on a lot of stuff, and in my opinion, it does it all well, but it doesn't have enough time to do all of them the required amount, because it's too short. But that's not to say it's all bad. On the contrary, there are quite a few marvelous scenes in here. The highlights for me being the scene where Donna catches Beep the Meep, and coincidentally, at that same time, the 14th Doctor shows up. Oh, how I laughed. I got it. In that moment, I got it. I saw why Rusty Davies brought back David Tennant, and it was glorious. It feels weird bringing up the sonic screwdriver in conversation now, because it was randomly shown to be able to do all these things, and presumably it can no longer do them anymore. Yeah, it's a little weird it could do all this, but I enjoyed the sequence, so sure, I'll buy it. Cool Sonic, cool costume too. Something I also want to point out as weird is the visual style of this episode. In a bizarre way, it's kind of similar to The Woman Who Fell to Earth style in some of the shots they do and etc. But guys, I've got to be real. Considering they've got this massive budget and all, the visual style of this episode is far less cinematic than the visual style of the Chibnall era, especially Series 11. Even to its most vehement, lot of haters. Everyone must admit that the Chibnall era is stunning visually. And I'll be the first one to say that despite the budget increase, I feel like RTD2 in that department has been a clear step down. Rewatching The Woman Who Fell to Earth last month really opened my eyes at just how stunning visually that episode is. But no, apparently Chibnall bad. Ho 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 ho. The third act of The Star Beast is when everything starts to fall down. The consequences of the fast pace begin to show with the destruction and subsequent undestruction of London. However, it does give us this incredibly well performed and awesome moment between the Doctor and Donna where they save the day played over I'm the Doctor, which is cool. And in fact, this bit is so cool that I'll just ignore that the setup for it has been totally rushed because I don't care. It's a cool moment. Sadly, the following sequences with Rose are not as cool. I remember specifically the line binary, non-binary getting on people's nerves when the episode first came out. I get why. It's a dumb joke, but to be fair, it is just a joke. It's a cheeky add-in. It's not meant to really make sense. It's just Rusty Davies being cheeky, so I'll give that one a pass. What I will call out though is the fact that the meta crisis passes down. Nope, that's not how that works. Now, it would be a different thing if Donna was pregnant when the meta crisis happened. That's a trope, that makes sense, but you're telling me that years later, it passes down. It was still with her, even though it was meant to have gone away, and then was passed down, and then was diluted, and then you can let it go. No, 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 too many leaps. One logical leap, fine. 2, fine. 3, you're stretching it. I feel like if you want your concepts to be easily explained to audiences, there needs to be a chain of logic. From this to this to this. But this straight up don't make sense. But I will say though, I am fine with Rose being the one who saves the day. I think Shirley Bingham's explosive wheelchair is funny, if a little cartoony. And I'm gonna say something that's a little controversial, but it's how I think, and I'm just gonna say it. I think, in retrospect, after giving the episode a fair shot and looking back on it with a completely open mind, I think Russell T Davies handled the trans stuff well. Okay, yes, I remember. Everyone, from all sides of the community, by the way, was saying that he did a terrible job. But after looking back on it, I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say what I truly feel. I think he did it well. Will it age badly? Yes. Everything about this topic will age badly and look funny in about 10 years. That's just how these things always go. Is there a good effort? Also, yes. I think the scenes earlier in the episode show a decent portrayal of everyday life. Rose is a layered character. The conversations between Donna and Sylvia, the heckling of the classmates, and something I find cool and proof that Rusty Davies put a lot of thought into this. There is a narrative reason, narrative justification behind the decision to make the character trans. It wasn't done on a whim. It is integral to the entire story, to the themes of the story. The Star Beast is an episode that is saying a lot, and I can appreciate that. The Doctor and Donna were both inside of her, and that manifested in this way. The significance of the names is also really well handled. Russell T Davies clearly put a lot of thought and care into this. And I feel like if Russell T Davies isn't allowed to tell LGBT stories, who the hell is? You know what I'm saying? So yes, I'm gonna give Russell T Davies a thumbs up on the handling of social issues in The Star Beast. With that said, the line, something a male presenting Time Lord wouldn't understand, is still dumb, and only serves to undermine the entire point of the episode for a cheap gag. It doesn't make sense in universe, it comes off as condescending and obnoxious, it only serves as rage bait, and what a shame too.
And you were doing so well.
I think The Star Beast has a few cringy lines here and there, but overall the social commentary and tackling of social issues is something I am fine with. It's funny, isn't it? Nuance. People can have multiple opinions at the same time. The Star Beast ends with a tremendous scene, unveiling the new interior for the TARDIS. A ginormous, gorgeous, brilliant set with interactive lighting and long sprawling pathways that you can run along to your heart's content like a kid at Christmas. It's gorgeous! The energy is infectious. What a lovely scene. Ending on a funny cliffhanger that leads us into the next episode. Now we're talking. This is a real episode. While Blue Yonder starts with a very strange scene of Isaac Newton inventing Mavity. I still don't know what this is about, but I'm sure it will be explained later.
I'll
explain later.
Then we land on this spaceship and the TARDIS runs away. I didn't catch this at the time, but this is actually a callback to the Crotons. W. Russell T Davies. The soundtrack here is brilliant. I didn't mention it before, but Murray Gold has returned to do the music, and while the Star Beast has a lot of reused tracks or leitmotifs, Wild Blue Yonder really gives him a chance to stretch his musical muscles. Wild Blue Yonder was kept entirely secret in the marketing, leading fans to go wild with speculation. But people like me were more than satisfied with what we got. A good, solid, premium episode of Doctor Who. This one was amazing. While I will admit the special effects aren't the best, even with the massively increased budget, the direction here is incredible. One of the best directed Doctor Who episodes I've ever seen. Additionally, David Tennant brings an all-star performance, as does Catherine Tate. This is everyone at their best. And we reference Flux at the best part of the episode. What was this episode made for me? Emotion, drama, terror, excitement, all of the emotions this type of episode should elicit a massive success. Goosebumps like Braille. You're reading us. I just adore that line. My favourite line from all three specials. He really is good, isn't he? There, Russell T Davies. Some of my highlights would be the Doctor picking up the wrong Donna, the Doctor's monologue about the TARDIS, and this tiny bit where the thing spins around like an episode of Scooby-Doo. This episode does an incredible job at mirroring the scenes. Truly a masterclass in writing. Both the Doctor and Donna talk about their homes, the Doctor talking about the TARDIS and Donna about her family, and then they switch to talking about their origins, and Donna talks about how she thought she was born in Chiswick, but actually she was born in Southampton, which actually mirrors the Doctor, who thought he was born on Gallifrey, but actually was born somewhere else. I also love how David Tennant says, "We are not things."
We are not things.
What a great name for an adversary. Oh, I see. When things go, they keep existing. Donna, Donna, Donna. Great Doctor Who monster. And the episode ends on a high with the final appearance of the legend Bernard Cribbins. Rest in peace to the King. The conclusion to the trilogy of specials, The Giggle, released to a strange reception. No one thought that the episode was actually bad. Well, some people did, but not most people. But some of the stuff that happened in it had a few people raising their eyebrows. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The episode begins in 1920s Soho, in this atmospheric sequence introducing the Toymaker, played superbly by Neil Patrick Harris. He totally steals the show here, and his titular Giggle is already, in my opinion, an iconic part of the show, accompanied by a great soundtrack by Murray Gold. A villain worthy of the 60th anniversary. I remember people have been asking for the Celestial Toymaker in the fandom since at least 2010, so in the background lurking there was always that demand and expectation for the character. And now here we are with them finally showing up on screen and not only meeting all of those unrealistic fan expectations, but also in my opinion, actually surpassing them. Definite pro to the episode. We cut to the modern day where we are introduced to the modern unit. We'll be coming back here a lot presumably, so it's nice to see Kate Stewart finally being given some characterization after 10 years of being a fraud. Mellor's back and seen for the first time is the Vlinks. Nice. There isn't really much to say here. I love these sequences. I love the montage of how the Giggle is affecting the whole world. I think the social commentary throughout the whole episode is fair, even-handed and funny, and I think Unit is adequately set up and utilised. We then return to the 1920s for another great sequence in the Toymaker's domain. The 14th Doctor is confronted with his past, there's some great imagery, great moments, A1 stuff. Similarly to the Star Beast, this episode is fast-paced, but unlike the Star Beast, this doesn't feel rushed at all. Every element gets its dues and the juggling act is performed seamlessly. What I love about watching episodes written by Russell T Davies and especially Stephen Moffat is that you get to see a master at their craft. In particular, Stephen Moffat is so good at writing Doctor Who episodes, he has it down to a science. So watching them is always so enjoyable because in the modern series, they're the best at what they do. Of course, if you look back at the classic series or certain parts of the EU, you will find the true goats of Doctor Who. But no matter what, I will still love my champions. When the Doctor returns to unit, the tone shifts. The music starts, and the highlight of the episode takes center stage. I sadly cannot play it for copyright purposes, but this is the best scene of the episode, and everything I ever wanted / imagined. If you really want to be nitpicky, you can say it's too similar to Power of the Doctor, but I don't care. I love it. Great music choice, great choreography, great moments with the unit soldiers. It's darkly funny and villainously entertaining. But sadly from here, the cracks begin to show. Up to this point, I would call The Giggle not just a good episode, but an incredible episode, rivaling some of Rusty Davies' best work he's ever done for the program. I mentioned this in my initial review that the first half of The Giggle isn't the most rich in terms of themes or subtext, even compared to The Star Beast, but it is certainly supremely entertaining, which, in my opinion, trumps all. I spoke about visual style earlier. This episode looks great. Well done, as always, to everyone on the production team. I don't think you've ever let any of us down, and if you have, it wasn't your fault. And everything genuinely was going great, up until the moment the Toymaker shoots the Doctor. Boom. Shock. Horror! The Doctor falls to his knees. Donna and Mel each come to his side. The regeneration energy starts to build, and a rendition of Hologram begins to play. Murray Gold, you are a genius. It's a perfect decision, and genuinely emotional. An incredible soundtrack that elevates the scene to even greater heights. Fantastic, Mel says. It's beautiful. The Doctor takes in a breath. The music crescendos. And...
Could you pull?
By generation! Ncuti Gatwa becomes the 15th Doctor and plays with the Toymaker's balls. The Toymaker then drops the ball, literally, and loses. The Doctor wins. Hooray! Something I really admire about Russell T Davies is his commitment to not filling his scripts with exposition. You can really tell. I mentioned this earlier, but the man is efficient with his scripting. It's genuinely inspirational. His dedication to cutting away as much exposition as humanly possible, leaving behind only what is necessary. Because at the end of the day, you can have all the sci-fi lingo in the world, but the thing that people actually connect to are the people. The emotion, that's what gives it its heart. And I respect that immensely. And as I say, it's inspiring to someone who uses Rusty Davies' scripts to learn from, because the dude's one of the best writers in the country. You'd be a fool if you want to write like I do, not to look at what he does and take notes. But sometimes a little explanation goes a long way. By generation happens, and then it's done. The only explanation we get is a throwaway line that it's a Time Lord legend. And I get that. There's an urgency in the scene that needs to be addressed. They can't just sit there for hours and hours talking about the intricacies of Time Lord biology. But at the same time, a good test to see if you've explained something well or not is if the main star of your show can explain what happens. And as shown in my last video, poor Ncuti Gatwa, bless him, could not. Everyone is confused. No one knows how it works. Now would be a good time for a little exposition. Just a little. I respect going in there saying, oh, it's a Time Lord legend, and then instantly moving on. But with something this big, we just needed just a little more explanation. However, again, what I respect is the confidence. The confidence in Rusty Davies' writing is something that just has to be strived for. A lot of the time when breaking down what makes Doctor Who work, a lot of the time for me, it comes down to the it factor. It's confident in what it's doing, and it does it unapologetically. For example, the Chibnall era is a lot less confident in its approach than the Rusty Davies era, switching formats, tones, styles, etc. And it's also less popular because it didn't stick to its guns. Ironically, the Chibnall era is the era that listened the most to fan backlash. Ironically, I also think it's a case study in why you shouldn't listen to fan backlash. And I like the Chibnall era, but Russell T Davies has a level of swagger in his writing. The way I've described it is the source. Do his episodes have the source? Yes! It's like a secret third way of ranking episodes. Does it have good writing? Nah. Good direction? Nah. But does it have the source though? If yes, then that's a W. But my problem with the ending of The Giggle is that it has no source. No confidence. Russell T Davies' decision to make 14 stick around is not just misguided, it is weak. Doctor Who, at its core, is about loss, about eventually letting go. And while I understand his position on how being a rough time for everyone because of a certain government who I won't mention, and how people need a bit of joy in their lives, I understand what Rusty Davies is saying, but this ending just goes against everything that Doctor Who's about, man. I don't like this ending. The 14th Doctor decides to settle down on contemporary Earth and live a regular, boring, mundane life. Character assassination. Plain and simple. That's not who the Doctor is. And I know that people are gonna say, oh, he's old. Oh, he needs a break. I do not care. It's not what the Doctor's about. It's not what the show is about. There are other things to talk about. The ease at which the Toymaker is defeated in a rather unimaginative way. The way the TARDIS gets doubled by magic. The shoehorning in of even more mystery boxes. 9 in 3 episodes. That's gotta be a new record. But what really matters, and what really actually bugs me about the ending to this episode, is the fact that the Doctor settles down, gets a job, pays taxes, and lives a boring, regular, everyday life. And they have the ghoul to call that an adventure. We live that every day. It is no adventure. Doctor Who is the adventure. And do you know who gets that? The next Doctor! In the sneak peek for the next episode, the 15th Doctor says this.
I don't have a people, I don't have a home. But I don't have a job either. I don't have a boss or taxes or rent or bills to pay. I don't have a purpose or a cause or a mission, but I have freedom.
Which is pretty much exactly what I said in my original video. I hate this ending. I found it incredibly demoralizing, and I remember after watching the episode, I just felt sad. And not in a way that it's intending to make me feel. If an episode was trying to make me sad, I'd love it, because it succeeded in what it's trying to do. And you've always got to judge episodes on what they're trying to do. But this episode wasn't trying to make me sad. This episode was trying to make me happy, and it did the opposite. Doctor Who having a dinner party in France with a bunch of characters I could not care less about. It is a nightmare. I hate those environments, and they do not suit Doctor Who in the slightest. I hate the idea of endings to Doctor Who in general. It betrays what the whole show is about. So to do this is not only an unconfident move from Rusty Davies, but it is also a self-sabotaging one. I can go on and on about how much I hate this ending, but I think I'll end this on a more positive note. I do like this episode. Even with that ending, I still think the episode is overall great. And I like the 60th anniversary specials. As I said, I've gone back and rewatched them a million times already, and I'm sure I'm going to keep doing so. They have their quirks and parts that bug me, but honestly, that's most of Modern Who. Overall, I'd have to give the Star Beast a solid 6 out of 10, while Blue Yonder 8 out of 10, and the Giggle receives a nice round 8 out of 10. But we're not done! The Church on Ruby Road is, as of recording, the latest Doctor Who episode to have been released, and I think it's pretty good. It's not a perfect episode. The beginning is a little sloppy with a weird inside scene at the behest of Disney that, while seemingly inoffensive, betrays the whole purpose of the episode building mystery surrounding the Doctor by introducing him way too early, because they feared Americans would be too stupid to understand who he was otherwise. Maybe they were right, I don't know. Again, I reiterate, the scene itself isn't too bad by itself, but in the context of the episode, Doctor Who is trying to be mysterious, and that scene gives away the entire mystery. I also don't really like nightclubs, but that's just a me thing. The episode succeeds in introducing Ruby Sunday as a nice and relatable character, succeeds in introducing the new 15th Doctor, who is great, and succeeds in being a piece of light, fun Christmas entertainment. It probably doesn't reach the heights of, say, the Christmas Invasion, but it is nowhere near as bad as many of the other Christmas specials have been in the past. For me, the highlight of the episode is the final act at the titular church on Ruby Road. Absolutely beautiful, climactic, and perfectly conceived. I also like the Lulu Bell gag. Overall, I enjoyed this episode as much as the Star Beast. I'll give it a solid 6 out of 10. And that's it. That's all of the anniversary content. How was it overall? Pretty bad. Pretty bad. For 10 out of the 12 months of the year, it was exceedingly dry. A lot of the EU material released was deeply disappointing. And the best part of it, by far, were the actual specials themselves. On that front, basically no complaints from me. Yeah, I don't understand people wanting putting another episode on the same level of the 50th. And yeah, I have no rebuttal to those people on why we couldn't get one. People saying, oh, the 60th isn't as big a deal as the 50th are completely and obviously wrong. We have too many multi-Doctor stories. We have 7. We only have 7 multi-Doctor stories in the entirety of Doctor Who, not counting Dimensions in Time. The Diamond Jubilee is certainly a big deal. A crossover with the 10th, 11th and 12th Doctor would have been awesome, but I'm also happy with what we got. So while the anniversary as a whole wouldn't be something that I would consider a W, the specials certainly are. And I can't wait for the future of Doctor Who. Season 1 is very, very close. Hell, it might even have come out by the time this video goes up, and it looks awesome. So don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. If you want me to do a follow-up or go into more detail about anything that I mentioned in this video, don't hesitate to leave a comment below saying your thoughts and feelings. And if you want to help support the channel, you can click the join button below to become a member of the channel and gain access to 1 million perks and benefits. These include access to the exclusive Discord server, my full live reactions to all of the latest episodes, and my new weekly series where I review all of the Doctor Who that I watched within the week. And a special shout out to the king, Kyle Reese. Thank you to the members: Teddy Bite, Just Him, Lee, Kastretch, Architect, Zach Pollock, Ertle the Turtle, Casual Log, Colin Savage, Tom, Oz Baxter, Manny, Someone's Best Friend, Connor Bell, Eric, Flippant, Rouge Argentine, Kyle Reese, Snurly, Sanyu, and KC. With all that said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one.